In 1431, a 19-year-old girl stood in front of a courtroom surrounded by powerful male clergy. One of the main accusations against her wasn't murder or treason, but it was in fact wearing men's clothing. This is about Joan of Arc. In the survey I conducted, 100% of you said that you weren't familiar with Joan of Arc at all. And many of you also said that you were neutral or somewhat interested in gender roles, but over half of y'all strongly agreed that gender norms still influenced power today. And Joanne's story shows how those power structures were enforced centuries ago and how they still matter to this day. Although Joan of Arc is often remembered as a heroic martyr, her trial demonstrates how medieval authorities criminalized gender nonconformity to silence a younger, lower-class women who threatened to establish power structures. During this presentation, I'll be covering a couple points such as the gender expectations of medieval society, how Joanne's clothing became central to her conviction, and how her trial reflects broader systems of power and silencing. In the 15th century of France, women were expected to marry, manage households, and remain under male authority. And according to historian Helen Castor, medieval society viewed male leadership as divinely ordained, meaning gender hierarchy was considered part of God's design. And additionally, historian Regine Pernaud explains that women rarely held public authority and female leadership in military spaces was viewed as unnatural or dangerous. Joanne cut her hair short, she wore armor, and she led the French troops during the 100 Years' War. And these actions placed her exclusively in male spaces, which did not end up well. And she also advised Charles VII and played a pretty big role in his coronation, giving a teenage peasant girl political influence in royal decision making, which was very unheard of at the time. Once we understand how rigid gender expectations were, it becomes clearer why her clothing became central to her trial. According to the translated 1431 trial transcripts published by the Fordham University Medieval Sourcebook, Joanne was repeatedly questioned about whether she believed it was lawful for a woman to wear men's clothing. And again, historian Regine Pernaud argues that although the trial was politically motivated, the charge of cross-dressing became the illegal justification for execution. But Joanne's trials was not all about clothing, and it reveals something larger about how institutions silenced marginalized voices. She grew up a peasant, she was illiterate, and at 19 years old, she was standing in court before male clergy. And according to historians Bonnie Wheeler and Charles Wood, her trial demonstrates how religious courts were used as political tools during the 100 Years' War. And historian Helen Castor explains that Joanne's detailed transcriptions are rare because medieval records typically preserve elite male voices. Joan of Arc's story is more than a legend of a warrior girl. Her trial reveals how medieval authorities criminalized gender nonconformity to suppress a younger, lower class woman who challenged political and religious power. If gender expectations could determine life or death in the 1400s, then how do gender norms still influence who is believed, trusted, or given authority to this day? Joanne once said during her trial, "I'm not afraid, I was born to do this." Though she was silenced at 19, her words remain. The question is, whose voices are we still trying to silence? Thank you.